In the last video we were talking about major scales and how to practice major arpeggios. In this video we're going to talk about minor arpeggios, and there's some little very interesting subtle things with minor arpeggios that aren't present in the shape of a major arpeggio on electric bass. So let's take a look at some of them. So let's first take a look at the most basic kind of one-octave shapes that everybody first learns in one position, in one octave. We're going to stick with C minor arpeggio, C minor triad. So we got C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C. Now there's a couple ways that we can finger this actually, and you notice that I just played it two different ways. One way is we could play 1, 4, and then bar and do the rolling with the second finger, so like that. Or we could do it with the first finger. Now, it's an interesting thing that happens with the first finger that is what I want to talk about in this video. It's this weird shape that happens between the 1 and the 4, where you get into a situation where the 4 is playing on one fret and the 1 is playing on a fret right below it. So check it out. 1, 4. This is where you shift up, but you're keeping the pinky on that finger, or on that fret, and you're playing with the fret before it with your first finger. It's a very sort of pianistic approach, the shift under. When pianists are playing with the thumb, they shift the thumb under, and the hand kind of glides across the fingerboard. It's a good sort of physical concept to get into when you're playing bass. So let's check out some other ways to finger in one octave. We got C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C. It's a very simple, easy way to do it. You're actually shifting a little bit, but it's all right. It fingers 4, 1, 4, 4, 4, 1, 4. So it's a very pinky intensive sort of shape. You can also play it with the open G string. C, E flat, open G, C, open G, E flat, C. Cool. So those are the 3-string one-octave shapes. Now let's take a look at a couple 2-string one-octave shapes. The best one, in my opinion, is this first one. So we have C, E flat, do the little weird pinky first finger thing, G, shift up to the C here, C, G, E flat, C. Now another way you could do it is do C and then shift up to the second finger here. So you're avoiding this thing, but I really want to focus on getting this physical idea in people's hands first. So another way that you could do it is, on 2 strings is this: C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C. That one's a little awkward, and I'll show you why. First, we're playing C, E flat in one position, then we're shifting up to grab this G with the pinky. Now, we're going to have to end up shifting again, but remember that the general rule is that you don't want to shift with the same finger that you left off of, so we're going to have to grab this next note with our first finger or second finger, or whatever. That's alright if we're going to keep going up the scale, but for one octave, it's 2 shifts and 2 pretty large shifts at once, so it's not very efficient. It's still a good thing to practice just for the technical aspects of it. Cool. So we have the 2-string one octaves for minor scale. Now let's take the 1-string. C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C. Pretty much the same sort of physical concept as the major scale. Nothing really new there. Cool. So what about 2-octave arpeggios? Now, just like the major scale arpeggios, we're just going to focus on 3 strings because on 4 strings it becomes a little bit easier. So we'll just go over some basic concepts. There's a lot more shapes that we could work with, but let's check them out. First one is very similar to the major scale concept, but remember that we're focusing on this sort of shifting sort of movement between the 4th and the 1st finger. So we have C, E flat, do that shifting thing, G, C, E flat, G, and then grab the C up here with the 1st finger. Or C, E flat, G, shift, C, E flat, G, and then grab it with the pinky right there. So you do this sort of thing twice. Twice more on the way back down. Good practice. Another way to do it is to use that G string, like we talked about in the major arpeggio video, to bounce up. So C, E flat, G, bounce up. Let's say all the way up here. C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C. Bounce to the G, E flat, C. Cool. What are some other ways we could do this? We could move up a little bit on one string. So we have C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G, C, G, E flat, C, G, E flat, C. I like getting people to practice that because that involves moving more on the lower strings, which is something a lot of people don't do. They tend to run out of room and start really thinking on the top two strings rather than on the bottom strings. It's a good way to practice. You could also just play it one octave on one string and then the next octave on the other strings, like this. C, E flat, G, C. So we did all of that on one string, and then play the rest there. Except I didn't quite finger that the way I wanted to, but you get the idea. There we go. Cool. So I hope that gave you some good ideas working with minor arpeggios. Next, we're going to start in on the more odd-looking and odd-feeling ones, which are the diminished and augmented triads, and then we'll also look at sus triads briefly. So stay tuned.